Before we get into this video, I'm going to make a deal with you. If this video hits 1,000 likes in the first 24 hours it's up, I'll have another episode tomorrow. And I might make a similar deal tomorrow for the next day. And maybe for the rest of this week. Maybe we'll have 5 or 6 episodes of the F1 Let's Play. If that sounds good, hit the like button. Be ready for an episode tomorrow. Other than that, shall we get into things? How's it going, folks, and welcome back to Alpine. Today we are heading to Barcelona for Fernando Alonso's home Grand Prix. We've not been on the podium in a few races. Maybe today we can change that. Of course, last episode we were in Miami. If you didn't see it, do go check it out. We're back today, as I've already said, heading to Spain. And some good news to kick things off. We're going to have some real wings ready for the next race, which is some really, really good news. The next race, of course, being the Spanish Grand Prix, taking place in 11 days' time. We're going to manufacture 4 of our new rear wings, a part that is going to give us a little bit of a performance boost. And with that being done, we can maybe focus the development elsewhere. And to be honest, when it comes to the development of the car, I've got a plan. And that plan is a plan that I've already done over on Twitch in our Has Let's Play. And if you're playing F1 Manager, I think this is a pretty viable kind of development path. Ahead of the British Grand Prix, Austrian Grand Prix, and French Grand Prix, I want to be targeting high-speed cornering. They are quick circuits. They are circuits where, well, speed is king. And with that in mind, we are going to try and develop a front wing. As you can see here, the current ATR period has 49 days remaining. We are going to put all the remaining time into this. Of course, we've already got an underfloor that's also being worked on, but is a little way away. But I think if we focus on a high-speed performance wing, we're going to put ourselves in a pretty good position. You can see here, it does give us some performance increases across the board. As I said, I kind of want to be targeting this for the British Grand Prix, which is, if we just have a peek, it's in 53 days' time. So with that in mind, 53 days is less than 61. So in order to get this done, we're going to stick a few more engineers on it. In fact, I'm going to stick all but 2 engineers on it. I'm also going to change the approach to rushed. And with that all set up, it will be done in 32 days' time, which will be just in time, potentially even, for Canada. So that would be kind of a good timing to get it in. It's going to cost us 1.25 million, but, well, we've got $30 million in the bank right now. We don't need to worry about the money. So just to recap the current projects, the side pods that we kicked off last time out, the side pods that only Ocon ran last race, they are going to be available for this upcoming race in Barcelona. And in the meantime, we've got that front wing that's going to be done for Canada and an underfloor which is likely to come in and around the summer break. Underfloors give you a massive performance increase. In fact, you know what? Let's stick our spare engineers on it for now whilst we've got the time to get it done a little bit sooner. When that underfloor arrives, I want to believe we'll be challenging for podiums, at least for a month or 2. Elsewhere, I do want to upgrade one of our facilities, and that is the race simulator. It allows our drivers to gain experience during the week passively, particularly good on your reserve driver. Of course, we have got Piastri as our reserve. Anything we can do to further his development and help him become a better racer, we probably should be doing. So I was just informed that the Barcelona Grand Prix is in a day's time, and we only have 2 front wings. So if any of them break, we don't have any front wings. So with that in mind, we're going to have to use the emergency approach option. Now, I could have used this last episode on the side pods. Isn't usually worth the hit, especially if it's a minor upgrade like the side pods were. But in this situation, I can't really afford to not have a front wing for the Grand Prix. Little bit of good news for us. I have upgraded the weather center again. I feel like the weather center is the one thing I want to be accurate. I mean, apparently it was 70% accurate, and I still got the strategy wrong twice in qualifying with rain. I believe this weekend is going to be a dry race in Barcelona, so it can't go wrong 3 times in a row. So that's a plus. So with no rain on the horizon, I'm confident that we can get a driver 8th in qualifying. Elsewhere, I think we can get both drivers into Q2. Show me the bonuses. Give me the bonuses. Also, if we can get another driver into the top 10, or rather 2 drivers into the top 10, we're going to hit our hot streak and get a little bit of more money from our sponsors, which would be really, really useful. So, of course, we have got new side pods and new rear wings in Fernando's car. Of course, Ocon already had the side pods, but he has got that new rear wing. Here is a little comparison of just those 2 parts and the difference they make to our car. Ocon's car on the right has all the upgrades. Alonso's on the left hasn't got them yet, although we are about to put them on the car. But just so you can see how we've improved the car in general, cornering is better, our overall speed is way, way better, and that is going to be particularly useful here in Barcelona because it's a track where acceleration is key, medium and low speed cornering is important, aspects that were maybe slightly weaker aspects of our car, but at least now we're a little perhaps above average in them, at least compared to where we were. I am just actually going to make sure that I get the upgrades in the car. Be a little bit awkward, wouldn't it, if I just forgot about them. Elsewhere, in terms of engines, both of our drivers' engines are showing a little bit of wear. I think I'm going to run these engines in practice, then swap them out for our second engines of the season in both cars ahead of qualifying before parc fermé conditions kick in. So off the back of practice, not the best performances, but in general, I feel like we go a lot better in qualifying than we do in the practice sessions that I sim. Alonso up in 8th, though, giving me hope that the car has got the pace in it. One thing we need to do before we get into qualifying is make sure we swap out those parts. So we're going to be putting in engine number 2 in both cars. So I've swapped the engines. Ocon's got a new engine. Alonso's got a new engine. Let's go see how we do in quali, shall we? I was oddly optimistic going into this qualifying, obviously. 2 new engines, that was hopefully going to give us a little bit of oomph that we perhaps hadn't seen in our practice times. And well, to kick off Q1, you know the deal by now. Get the drivers out early, try and avoid traffic, and just get a time on the board. No nonsense. And well, the good news was we managed to do that in Q1, and on the whole, it was relatively straightforward. Fernando Alonso going purple in every sector ahead of Ocon. Of course, they were the first 2 cars out on track, so one of them was going to be the fastest. But interesting to note that Fernando was that little bit quicker than his teammate. As they crossed the line, not a massive amount in it, 0.2 of a second. With those times, I did think it would be good enough to get through, but you know what? Better to be safe than sorry. Both drivers went out and did a further run. You can see Alonso running in between Hamilton and Russell. Ocon just behind Russell as well. The Red Bull and Ferrari cars just way, way, way up the road. But by comparison, ourselves and the Mercs, not a massive amount in it. It seemed like they were going to be our big rival this session with Bottas and Gasly, the usual suspects trailing behind. And as is, well, to be expected at this point, Aston Martin and Williams were out of that session. Anyway, into Q2 we went again. Early times on the board again. No traffic, no rain either, and well, both drivers crossed the line here. You can see Alonso crossing a second ahead of Ricciardo in the McLaren. But again, that speed that the Red Bull has is just too much. Perez comfortably up the road. Alonso and Ocon going strong, but not perhaps strong enough for me to be convinced that we could be safe. I was, I suppose, eager to see how the Mercedes got on. They set time slightly later than us. Russell slower than both of our drivers. But as Hamilton crossed the line to submit his first time, he was just faster than Fernando. So yeah, not a great deal in it. Had to go out for second runs in Q2 to try and improve our times. And well, it was going to be a struggle because in Ocon's case, he had Tsunoda in front of him, blocking his way. It compromised his lap. He couldn't go quicker. The saving grace for us in all of this was Carlos Sainz. He spun off the track. Yellow flags were shown as a result of that. Cars slowing down. And that meant that we made it through despite a, well, unfortunate performance for Ocon. You can see Alonso crossing the line just slower than Lewis Hamilton. But again, it's the same cars. Gasly just squeezing through as well at the end of the session. Q3 had the option to go on to new softs. Of course, in this session, if you make it this far, you're given an extra set. But I decided I wanted to save a set of softs for the race. So what we did was we went out this first lap on used tyres. We were going to have one set fresh for quali and then another set fresh for the actual race. I'm glad we went out on old tyres because our old friend, yeah, Sergio Perez in the Red Bull, blocked first Alonso, then Esteban Ocon. He got the worst of it, really did Esteban. But both drivers lost a lot of time. And well, when the times were all coming in, it wasn't looking good for us. New softs needed for both of our drivers. If we wanted to get them both into the top 8 and, of course, achieve some of our sponsor objectives, we were going to have to go quicker. And I didn't want to repeat of the last session where Sainz spun out and maybe compromised our laps. So with that in mind, Alonso, Ocon, first out of the garage for the final run-ins of Q3. Hopping on board with Alonso, green in Sector 1, green in Sector 2, currently running in P10. He needed to go faster. Of course, he'd lost that previous lap to Perez. How fast was he going to be able to go, though? I'll tell you what, he put it up to 4, faster than the Alfa Romeo. Ocon a little bit behind, but up in 5th. Bottas couldn't go quicker. Unfortunately for us, Max Verstappen, Leclerc, and Perez all on very, very good laps. George Russell crossed the line, and he did go faster than Esteban. And I curse my luck. And now it was all really on. Was Alonso going to be able to stay ahead of the Mercedes? Lewis Hamilton approaching the final corner. He'd been on a pretty quick lap here. We knew the Ferraris and Red Bulls were too quick, but could we be best of the rest? No. No, we couldn't. By 62 thousandths of a second, we came, well, 6th behind Hamilton. Verstappen did improve his final run-in to end up P1 and on pole for the next day. 6 and 8 for us, the best we could hope for. Our car's in an alternating pattern with the Mercedes. Not a bad spot to be in, not a terrible qualifying by our own admittedly poor standards. We've looked pretty good on race day. Let's go and see if we can keep our good race form going, shall we? So let's talk strategy for this race. The Spanish Grand Prix is an interesting one, especially with where we're starting. Alonso up in 6th on the 3rd row of the grid in a really good spot. Esteban Ocon a little bit further behind in 8th. And as a result of that, we're going to mix things up slightly. On Alonso, I want to get to him punchy and racy at the front. We're going to start him on the soft tyre, the fastest tyre. At this track, I feel like Alonso has the speed to keep up. By comparison, Esteban Ocon, I'm tempted to do a one-stop with. The reason for this is the one-stop is quite good at this track in-game. And on top of that, Esteban Ocon has 96 smoothness. He is one of the best drivers at making his tyres last as long as possible. And with that in mind, if we go for this medium-hard strategy, we can pit as late as lap 34, but on these hards, he can really make them work, and we could pit as early as maybe lap 26. And because it's a one-stopper, all we need is a safety car in that window of lap 26 to 34 to pit him onto. And it would be a free stop and possibly put him out in a really good position, especially if I'm expecting a lot of other cars to start on the soft and medium tyres. I think it plays to, you know, where we're sat on the grid. And the reason I'm going for the mediums first and then the hards is just because, given the fact he is starting in 8th, a little bit of race pace on the medium is going to be needed. If we start on the hards, we might not get off to the best start. And we don't want to have too many cars slowing us down, you know, as the race progresses. Of course, one last thing to do, tell the drivers to absolutely floor it to start this race. Up the pace, up the fuel mode, stick them in deploy, pushing as hard as they can for that opening lap. Let's go and see if we can get off to the dream start, shall we?
The drivers there lined up on the grid under mostly sunny skies. Looking here at Fernando Alonso. Not as close to the front as they might have wished for, but we know the race order can change a lot during those first few corners. Further back, we've got Esteban Ocon. A top 10 position today, but will they be able to capitalise on it? The race start is mere seconds away. This is it. It's the Spanish Grand Prix. And it's lights out, and away we go.
Let's see how we get on here. We're going to hop on board with Ocon straight away. Of course, we've got teammate Fernando Alonso just in front on that red-rimmed soft tyre. Looking at it, a lot of the drivers around us on the mediums to start. Oh, my word. Ocon had to hit the brakes there. I think he got spooked a little bit. Has dropped to place. As for Alonso, he is up to 5th. He is flying. He's had a great start. He's got ahead of Hamilton. Ocon has now got ahead of Russell. Although he is going to have Russell on the inside potentially. And, well, he's looking now to have a go up the inside of Lewis Hamilton. If Ocon could clear Hamilton, that could be massive for us. And I'll tell you what, he is going to make that move work. That is absolutely sensational for us. That is what we wanted to see to start this race. We're going to tell Ocon just to ease things a little because he has got to manage, well, everything that little bit more. But for both our drivers to clear our big rivals this season is huge. And in fact, looking at Alonso, he's looking to have a go up the back of Charles Leclerc. Only 0.15 seconds behind him. But this, as far as we are concerned, my friends, is the perfect start to this race. Through the chicane, one further corner to end the lap. Going to stick Ocon down into neutral just to manage his battery a little bit. But you know what? Fernando, if you want to have a go here, on your soft tyres, the faster tyre, have a go, my friend. He is one of only a handful of drivers starting on the softs today. He has cleared Leclerc. Next up the road is Perez. All these cars in front on the mediums. And whilst I'll tell you what, on qualifying pace, we didn't quite look quick enough to hang with the likes of these guys. Right now, race pace, it's looking very, very promising for us. Ocon still has got Hamilton in behind. Maybe it's in our interest just to try and get Ocon to push a little bit here. As much as I want him to manage his tyres, as much as we want them to last as long as possible for the one stop, if we could get that second ahead of Hamilton, maybe with the help of a little bit of slipstreaming, behind Leclerc, it would be nice. There's a yellow flag in Sector 2, and I think George Russell has gone off. Mercedes have had a nightmare start here. Our big rivals are third in the championship. George Russell couldn't get temps into his mediums. He's done well to avoid the wall there, really. But he is tumbling down the grid order. He is going to be right at the very back. And suddenly, what was looking like a good weekend has the potential to be an immense weekend for us. Esteban Ocon currently 1.3 seconds ahead of Hamilton as DRS is going to be enabled on this next lap. Hamilton without his teammate as well is all on his lonesome. You can see he's got Bottas behind. We're in front. We are dropping the Mercedes, the lone Mercedes now that we're really racing against, at an alarming rate. And in fact, Ocon's looking to have a go on Charles Leclerc. They're both on the medium tyres. I've got to imagine that other teams are going to be looking at the two-stopper starting on the mediums. But if anyone's going long like us, track position could be important. And whilst, you know what, I do want to push Ocon. I do want to encourage him. Common sense has got to prevail here. We've built a cushion of a second and a half to Lewis Hamilton, which is absolutely massive. Slightly higher up the road, Alonso turning down the stuff on his car now because we do want to make these softs last. We don't want to melt through them really quickly. But 3 laps into this race, we have had as good a start as we could hope for, as there is another yellow flag in Sector 2. Another competitor has run wide. I think it was that same corner. I think it was one of the Aston Martins. It was Lance Stroll. Is this the same corner? I think it might be slightly later on the same corner. He's gone deep into that corner. He's managed to get on the track quickly, but he's still right down at the back of the pack. Of course, the one thing we don't want now is a safety car this early on in the race, because we've kind of worked hard with Ocon just to try and build a gap to the likes of Lewis Hamilton behind. If a safety car came in now, we'd all group up, and all this effort that we're doing to try and keep a gap would be lost. But at least right now, if Ocon can just tag along to the back of Leclerc, if Alonso can tag along to the back of Perez, I will happily just take a little bit of help from the faster teams now to try and get us as high up this grid as we can. Verstappen has now locked up going into turn 9. I didn't see him go off the track in the 3D view. What happened here? Oh my word, he could have taken out Leclerc. I'll tell you what, that could have ended horrifically. But suddenly, Alonso's up to 3rd, and yes, we've not got DRS here. Leclerc's probably going to leapfrog us. But right now, P3, P5, if Leclerc passes us here, honestly, it wouldn't really be the end of the world. The Ferrari and Red Bulls are quicker than us. Of course, one of the Red Bulls has tumbled down the order. Verstappen now in 15th. Hamilton is 3.5 seconds behind Ocon. I feel like now we just have to be a little bit sensible with our racing. I am going to make a potentially controversial decision. I'm going to tell Ocon not to fight his teammate. We don't need him going into the back of Alonso. If you can just stay behind Alonso, I think that is good enough for us. The critical thing really right now as we trail Leclerc is that we keep this gap to Lewis Hamilton. And in fact, the gap is increasing. It's now up to 4 seconds. Alonso, I thought for a second he was going to make the move there on Charles Leclerc. In fact, he's alongside him. Esteban Ocon has got a perfect view of this race in action on lap 8. Is Alonso really going to try and make this work? As much as I want to encourage him to race and encourage him to maybe get a bit punchy here with Leclerc, we have got to think about the bigger picture, I feel like. There's been a multiple car crash in Sector 2. I saw the yellow flags. I wasn't sure what to make of it. Who has had an incident here? Are we going to see a safety car? You can see there's a lot of cars packed behind one of the McLarens. Wheel-to-wheel racing, and it's a Haas that has hit the side of, I think, was that Norris there? On the softs. It might have been Danny Rick. Either way, it's disastrous for the Haas. It's disastrous for McLaren. It is Danny Rick. Magnussen is going to get a penalty for it. Both cars appear to have got going, so no safety car required, which is great news for us. So right now, we are harvesting the battery on both of our cars, pushing a little bit, but in a slipstream, you can afford to push more on the fuel. You don't use up as much following. And right now, this is just a critical point where I think we can keep it with Leclerc. He's not really had the pace to drop us. And if we can just take this opportunity to charge our battery without losing lap time, it's going to be very, very useful later on in the race. The Leclerc train is continuing here, although Alonso's still thinking about having a go. Lance Stroll's had a lockup. That doesn't matter for our race as a whole. A lot of cars having trouble in the lower speed corners in Sector 2 on this track right now. I think the next big moment in this race is going to be when, well, the cars in and around us start to pit. Those cars on the medium tyres, those cars on the soft tyres. In an ideal world, Alonso makes these softs last long enough that we can maybe follow Leclerc into the pit or maybe look for the overcut. So lap 17 here, no one has pitted besides those forced to pit due to incidents. Elsewhere, Verstappen has cleared Lewis Hamilton. Of course, Verstappen had that lockup. That is going to be giving Hamilton maybe DRS to start to close down on our group of drivers. Fernando Alonso, he doesn't know the meaning of just chilling out. He's had enough of trading Leclerc. He's had enough of vibing away. And with him now ahead of Leclerc, I'm tempted to get him to push. We've got a charged battery. We're on the faster soft tyres. He's managed them really, really nicely. Maybe now is the time to go on the attack. Maybe now is the time to really, really push. Stick it into ploy and see if we can just eke out a bit more speed. We're coming up to some back markers, which on the one hand, it's not ideal. On the flip side, it is going to give us DRS. And whilst Leclerc is in range, we are also, I believe, going to get DRS here. Traffic might even play into our hands and allow Esteban Ocon to have a go on Leclerc here. It's Magnussen's Haas who's in the way. You can see Alonso is already 1.2 seconds up the road ahead of Leclerc. Doesn't have to manage his tyres quite as much as Ocon on the one-stopper Alonso. He can afford to get maybe a little bit more pushy, especially because that pit window is opening up. If there's a time to push Fernando, that time is now. Keep an eye on his lap times. He's got a few more back markers he's coming up to. The next up the road is Danny Ricciardo. Might be able to catch him soon enough to get DRS next time around on the straight. And speaking of which, that is exactly what is going to happen. We have dumped our battery. We've emptied it out here pushing. But in pushing, we have built a nice little margin to Leclerc. We did lose a bit of time behind Danny Ricciardo sooner. You can see Leclerc's not a million miles behind. Neither is Ocon. I think maybe Ricciardo compromised us more than I want to admit there in terms of pushing hard, but we are going to be pitting in, what, a lap and a half's time, I think, with Alonso. If we look at the pit stops, you can see only Danny Rick and Magnussen who came together have pitted, having sustained damage. The rest of the cars out on track, yet to stop. Zhou is also on the soft tyre strategy that Alonso's on. Of course, they might try a different, slightly tyre approach. But right now, we're running in a net P3 and P5. Ocon's in a good little spot. Maybe we can get him to push a little bit, because otherwise Leclerc might just vanish up the road. But this is good. This is fine. Hamilton no longer has DRS on Max Verstappen. Verstappen's vanished up the road. That is great news for us. Latifi is in the pits. He was starting on the mediums. He is going on to another set of mediums. Of course, just as a little reminder, you have to use 2 different types of tyre. I wonder if some of the cars who started on mediums around us are about to go medium soft. Of course, Latifi running the mediums, a longer lasting tyre. Alonso is going to end up doing an extra lap compared to Latifi on the kind of faster graining tyre, which is a little bit odd. You wouldn't normally expect that, but maybe the Williams isn't the most delicate car on its tyres. There's a world in which Perez, Sainz, maybe even Leclerc do end up pitting this lap. You can see Alonso is now 1.9 seconds ahead of Leclerc. I wonder if Leclerc did get caught up in a little bit of the traffic. As for Ocon, he is not a million miles behind us. We are going to have Latifi in the way. Nick. Saint Nick. Thank you, mate. He's got out of the way. We've lost a little bit of time there, so we are going to have to push. That marker's starting to be a factor. Of course, it is a shorter lap around here, so lapped cars will become a factor potentially. But going to be very, very interesting. Guan Yu Zhou has also pitted for the mediums. He did start on the softs. We'll keep an eye on the likes of Sainz and Perez here as they're about to come round this final corner. And in fact, Sainz is coming into the pits for Ferrari. Perez is staying out. I wonder if he's staying out with the knowledge that Verstappen's going to attempt to pit this lap. Elsewhere, of course, Alonso's going to pit for us. That was expected. Leclerc's going to stay out a lap. Ocon is going to trail behind, and this is really playing in to Ocon's hands. He's got that smoother tyre handling. His tyre wear, to be fair, is kind of comparable with the likes of Verstappen. Well, Ocon's had enough of chilling out. Ocon's had enough. I did leave him in deploy by accident, to be fair. He's decided to overtake Leclerc. So we have the race pace over the Ferrari with DRS. Probably not under regular circumstances. Sainz has pitted and come out. Alonso is coming out of the pit now. We should clear Bottas, which was kind of the window we were hoping for. And indeed we are. If we had got stuck behind Bottas or Gasly on this white hard tyre, that wouldn't have been ideal. But we knew that we had a little bit of a gap to aim for. We can get a little bit more aggressive on these tyres for Fernando Alonso. Whilst the plan is to go medium soft, we could go mediums if we wanted to. We could maybe make these mediums last longer and then push harder on the softs. There's a degree of tactical flexibility here. We could certainly wait out a safety car with Fernando. As for Esteban, I don't expect him to pull away from Leclerc here. He really shouldn't be racing with Leclerc here. But right now, he is second. But we're trying to go longer this stint, Esteban. You probably need to chill out slightly, bud. Please slow down. There is a back marker coming up, but I don't think Esteban's going to get DRS. And in fact, I'm doing all this saving. Leclerc's coming into the pit. So our buddy, our pal, a man who's helped us a lot, is unfortunately coming in, as is Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton. The big question is now, where is Alonso going to come out in relation to Leclerc? Of course, he was just up the road by 2 seconds. Is that 2-second gap still going to exist? We've pushed a little bit of hard on these tyres, knowing that we needed to. Leclerc was on the mediums. He's gone onto the mediums again, as has Verstappen, as has Hamilton. Have I gone for the right strategy here? Going soft, medium, soft? It seems like all the other teams are going medium, medium, soft. I don't know if they know something that we don't. As for Ocon, look at the life in his tyres right now. He is performing really, really nicely. That smoothness stat is working in our favour. And in fact, Alonso has made up, well, 1.5 seconds in the pits there. As things stand, everyone else, I think, is just planning to have one more stop. Perhaps Bottas is going to try the one-stopper, having started on the hard. But Ocon leads this race. But he has got to be careful. So lap 25 here, you can see most cars now have pitted for a second set of mediums for this middle stint. Alonso has got Leclerc slowly but surely closing the gap on him. That's to be expected. It's a faster car. As for Ocon, he's getting a little bit of help from Lance Stroll there. Lance Stroll, the back marker, holding back Perez, holding back Sainz. And whilst they are going to catch up with Ocon, you'd imagine Ocon's just not got that race pace. This is still a pretty good spot to be in. Esteban Ocon currently 1.4 seconds ahead of Carlos Sainz. We have been having him in conserve. He really has made these tyres last. We can wait out a safety car for a little while. I'm not sure medium softs is going to be possible as a strategy. We are going to have to use that hard tyre. But with the way that Ocon has managed his tyres during this stint, we are going to be able to push those hard. And whilst, yeah, it's likely the fact that, you know, Sainz and Perez are going to push and overtake us here, if he could just trail those two, Ocon could be on for a podium with this bold one-stop. I'm expecting to see Carlos Sainz go flying by Ocon here, but that is actually fine for us. I'd quite like to harvest our battery a little bit, charge it up. If we want to follow behind the Ferrari, it really wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. I mean, if we want to hold up the Ferrari, I mean, that's an option too, I suppose. So, well, Esteban Ocon didn't have DRS, didn't want to give up his position, though. He's holding on to P1 in this race for now. This is fantastic. Battery's charged. He's in a good spot. Alonso has got Leclerc catching him and Max Verstappen. We always knew it was a question of when, not if, Ocon would get passed by these cars on the fresher tyres. There has been a lockup, though. There's a yellow flag in Sector 2. Who has had a moment? I think it might have been one of the Hasses looking at the kind of traffic. He hasn't hit anyone, fortunately, whoever it was. There was a few of our rivals in the fray there. Leclerc and Verstappen very close to that lap task car when it went off. If there'd been a safety car, I was ready to pit Ocon. I was ready to take the free pit stop here. A little bit worried here that Ocon has dropped out of DRS range. Has he, or is he in it? He has dropped out of DRS range. I'm going to have to leave him on deploy here to try and keep up. Esteban, you're doing a great job. He's not going to be able to keep up with these guys. They're just too quick. But he's still 15 seconds up the road on Leclerc, who has now passed, I've just noticed, Alonso. And Verstappen's all over the back of him. How have they caught Alonso so quickly there? Are they that much quicker than us? I think they must be. This was probably down the straight. It was. You can see both the Red Bull and Ferrari with DRS. Quite fast. Quite fast. We've slotted in between them, which isn't necessarily the worst place to be. I am going to look to harvest here with Alonso whilst we're in DRS range of Leclerc. Hopefully Verstappen doesn't get us, but if he does, it's not necessarily the end of the world. Right now, we need to charge our battery for a big, big push. Just as a little reminder, we're going on the softs to the end of the race. These two cars around us are also going to be going on to that fast, soft tyre. So Alonso's battery is nice and charged. Leclerc in 4th, Alonso in 5th, and Verstappen in 6th are closing down on Esteban. The advantage that we've got with Fernando is that we have the possibility to go on to mediums here if we wanted to. Because the other teams have gone medium, they have to go onto soft tyres at the end. And a safety car now would probably be too soon for them to go onto the softs and make them last to the end of the race.
Yes.
As I say all of that,
I don't have that pace.
Alonso's in a race with Max Verstappen. They're going through the chicane side by side. Let's not have an incident here, Fernando. We don't need to do anything too crazy. There's a battle going on, and we're going to get squeezed out a little bit. We should have the help of DRS still because of the detection zone. That white line on the track being a little sooner. We're going to go on deploy and have to use that crucial battery that we've tried to save up to close this gap. You can see with that, Verstappen has leaped ahead of Leclerc. Okay, Ocon probably needs to pit this last lap. I am just wondering if we could go on to softs and make them last to the end. He's done an amazing job on these mediums. They should not have lasted as long as they are. You can see the pace target here isn't even set to the medium kind of marker, which is where we've been driving for most of this stint. He has done absolutely amazingly. I'm just wondering, could the soft last? Could Esteban make it work? It'd be a little bit marginal, but it might not be the maddest strategy. That said, the hard is probably the safest one. And if we're being maybe a little bit realistic with ourselves, I don't think us going onto the soft tyre is going to allow us to close the 9-second gap to Sainz and Perez, who are also going to be pitting for the softs. The reality is Ocon is now looking to hold on to 3rd place here. He is going to have a couple of back markers to clear, but a nice, simple stop onto the hards, which I think we'll do now rather than getting stuck behind these back markers. We can look to burn up what's left of these tyres. And I think this is the right moment to pit him. He should come out ahead of Hamilton. Okay. Track position is always important, and well, we're going to be giving that up with Esteban. He's coming into the pits. We are looking for a good stop time. Keep a very close eye on the likes of Alonso and Leclerc, who unfortunately for us are going to be having a head and clear quite comfortably in the end. Ocon's stop time of 2.7 seconds is not too bad. And just looking at the radar, looking at where Ocon's going to come out, we should, I hope, come out ahead of Hamilton, who currently is on mediums. But if I'm not mistaken, he started on the medium. So as good as the life is in this tyre for Hamilton, he is going to have to hit at some point in the future. Ocon has done everything he needs to do. He does not need to stop again. Leclerc and Verstappen have to stop again, as does Alonso. And with this hard tyre, with the life it has, it's time for Esteban to get punchy. I feel like our race for about the last 5-6 laps has just been following the Red Bull and Ferrari here. But I am using it as a chance now to charge up Fernando's battery. I would not be surprised to see some of these teams who went mediums pitting kind of soon to move on to the softs. Probably in the next 6 or 7 laps. Verstappen has vanished up the road. He's just set the fastest lap of the Grand Prix and pulled ahead of Leclerc and Alonso. Although he is currently suffering with a bit of traffic, which he is going to clear. We're getting to the point now where we might start to see some cars going for their second pit stop. We're perhaps going to look to do ours this next lap with Alonso, although I want to be a little reactionary. If we go on to the softs now, we have got a fresh set to go on to. It wouldn't be necessarily a bad timing. As I'm talking about us possibly pitting this lap, Alonso is thinking about racing this lap, but he's had enough of being behind Leclerc. I kind of wanted to be more reactive to Leclerc and pit if he didn't pit, or if he did pit, stay out. But if we're ahead now, you know what, Alonso? It's time to push for me. It's time to hit the ground and push hard, because I think Leclerc might pit this lap. Sainz is in the pit for Ferrari. Alonso has got ahead of Leclerc and is holding on to it. It is all chaos here. Sainz is going to come out behind both ourselves and his teammate, although now you have to imagine Leclerc is going to pit this lap. These mediums have still got plenty of life in them. There's a temptation to go deploy now and try and drop Leclerc. Given the fact that Ferrari have just pitted Sainz and Leclerc's on the same strategy, Leclerc surely has to pit this lap. I've already delayed the pit stop by 1 lap. I'm going to delay it by 1 further one. Perez from the lead of the race is now going to pit as well. Of course, Sainz, who he was battling, pitted a lap sooner. It's all action all of a sudden. There is lots going on here as Perez is going to pit. Leclerc, are you going to pit this lap? I am gambling on the fact that I think this Ferrari is going to pull in, and if it does, It's time to deploy all the way down the straight, and he is going to pit. That was kind of predictable. His teammate had done it previously. This is your time to push, Fernando. We are going to pit this lap. There is a yellow flag in Sector 1. A safety car now is the last thing we want to see, really. And you can see here, Perez has come out on track, and he has come out ahead of us. And now, Alonso's in this awkward position where he's between the two leaders of the race needing to pit again. Sainz is now getting held up by us, not by any intention. We are trying to push hard here with Fernando. He's going to be getting a little bit of DRS and a little bit of slipstream off Perez, which is nice. It's going to help us on this in-lap. In many ways, Perez coming out when he did was ideal for us. I don't think he compromised our opening sector too much. Alonso has put in an absolute stonker of a lap here. His job is done. Of course, Leclerc is pitted, and now he's come out 5 seconds behind Ocon. Once Alonso's pitted and Verstappen's pitted, they both pit at the same time. Ocon is going to move up to P3 in this race, if I'm not mistaken. It's time to deploy. It's time to maybe get a little bit of DRS off this Alfa Romeo that we're looking to lap. I believe it's Guan Yu Zhou. Are we in DRS range? Not quite. That could be huge. That could be a difference maker. Verstappen is coming out. We were behind Verstappen previously. Is Ocon going to come out ahead? He's going to come out side by side. These two are now racing to the end. Alonso has come out ahead of Charles Leclerc as well. That extra lap for Alonso has worked wonders. We are running P4 and P5 in this race. Alonso is coming out on used softs, so we can't afford to push too hard on him. Some of the cars on the softs now to the end aren't going to be able to be quite as aggressive in the same way that Ocon has been. He's made that long opening stint work. We weren't exactly sure where he was going to come out. I thought he might still come out ahead of Verstappen, who, of course, just as a little reminder, locked up and was down at the bottom earlier. He's had a great drive himself, the Dutchman. He's worked his way through everything to be where he is now.
DRS is disabled.
Alonso has emptied his battery, but the help of DRS, if he can get past this Alpha without being compromised too much, he's made a gap to Leclerc.
Okay, copy.
He might be able to work with Ocon and co to maybe, just maybe, fend off Leclerc for what's left of this race. Okay, there was a load of back markers on the straight. You can kind of see how many there were behind us. We've made it through just about. There's an Alfa Romeo directly behind us. Leclerc, who's also trying to make his way through here, is getting held up. There is so much traffic between Alonso and Leclerc. Leclerc is losing more and more time here. This is absolutely perfect for us. The Ferrari's quicker. It's hunting us down. The more time that Leclerc loses behind these back markers, the better the news is for us. Unfortunately, I think the net time lost is actually not that bad for him. I think DRS more than made up for the time he lost through the corners. 1.6 seconds behind. He's going to be hunting down Alonso. Ocon is, 6 seconds up the road from Leclerc? You can see it here. Alonso in 5th, Ocon in 4th. In many ways, Alonso might have to turn into a bit of a defender here, a bit of a guardian. If he could just slow down Leclerc, maybe eat some time out of his laps, it might allow Ocon to secure 4th. I feel like no matter what happens here, Alonso is probably going to be overtaken. So with that in mind, we're going to turn on hold back cars behind. As he goes onto the straight, the Ferrari is close behind. Is the Ferrari going to have DRS here? It isn't quite. That is perhaps as good as it could get for us. The current gap from Alonso to Ocon is 4.4 seconds. With that hold-up kind of other driver's command, we're going to now hope to make that gap a little bit bigger and also compromise Leclerc in the process. The Ferrari is going to be eyeing up both of our drivers, expecting to get 4th. Ferrari are going to need 4th as well, because right now Red Bull going to be occupying 2 slots on the podium. For Alonso now, though, it's just all about, can he do us a favour? Can he just hold up Leclerc here and build this gap? This number here is the one to pay attention to.
Okay.
Hamilton is 26 seconds behind. We don't have to worry about him. What we do have to worry about is being overtaken here. Fernando, you can get aggressive. You can use deploy here just to try and keep the Ferrari behind. He's trying to squeeze out Leclerc and really get in the way. He's certainly compromising the Ferrari driver's line, but the Ferrari driver just has too much pace. I was hoping for a masterclass, and unfortunately for us, the Ferrari's got us done. But I'll tell you what, Alonso, he's not going to give up the fight just yet. He is going to get DRS here as well.
Ferrari, advance the race.
Can he now get past? He's going to have DRS. We've not got any ERS to use. Can we try and make a move into turn 1? Any little bit of fighting that we do here with Alonso is doing our teammate a favour, but I am now fearful Leclerc's going to vanish up the road. Alonso may be looking to have a go round the outside, but to be honest, our tyres are heating up. I can't maintain this. Maybe, just maybe, we let him have one last go with DRS here. But with no ERS, the battery, that little bit of extra oomph, which I think ultimately gives us the chance over the Ferrari, it's going to be difficult. But I'll tell you what, he's going to give it a mighty big go. Can he maybe get around Charles Leclerc here? Even if he's just wheel-to-wheel racing, he is slowing down the Ferrari driver, but unfortunately, he's just been squeezed out and off the racing line. He has to lift with that. I think that is Alonso's defensive mission done. He did get us another 0.5 seconds there. 5 laps remaining. We've got a few back markers we're approaching. Leclerc, 4 seconds behind. On that last lap, he gained by another 0.4 seconds. I think as things stand, barring us maybe getting held up by this back marker, which is going to be, I think, Vettel. Is it Vettel? It is Vettel. We should be fine here. And in fact, Vettel is very, very kindly going to move out of the way. Of course, they came together, Vettel and Ocon. You might remember in Jeddah. So whenever we're clearing him, I get a little bit nervous. We've managed to clear that gap. Leclerc's going to have to do the same. That's going to slow down his lap, you'd imagine, a little. He is still a long way behind here. Again, I don't want to say it too soon, because the driver has just locked up in Sector 2. But we should be okay here. Who has locked up? Who has had a moment? I'm not sure it's one that's going to impact our race too much. And in fact, it's not. It was Guan Yu Zhou down in P12.
Was that a lock-up on the track?
Oh my god. Oh my god. Esteban Ocon was doing so well. A lap and a half from the end, he's gone wide. Is he going to be able to get on the track?
Okay.
I was just going forward in time. I was sat thinking, we'll come back for the final lap. We're 2 seconds ahead of Leclerc. And with that lockup, P4 has gone. He will get back onto the track. He is now behind Alonso. I mean, I suppose the good news is we've only lost as a team 1 position.
Let's have a look.
What it does mean, though, is Ocon was off the track. As Ocon had it locked up, Leclerc cruises around to take P4. Leclerc, if I hadn't gone on aggressive, probably would have got into DRS range for that final lap. But the one-stop strategy was looking like an absolute blinder. And, well, now it's good. P4 or P5, P6, we'll take that. That's a pretty good race result. It's not quite what we were hoping for, though. Carlos Sainz has won this Grand Prix. He was trailing Perez for extended periods. There was a period where Alonso was in the way in between them. But he managed to cover the gap. He managed to make the gap up. As for Leclerc, I don't think he has the ability to catch Verstappen. In fact, no, he doesn't. It's not even close. It's going to be 2 Red Bulls on the podium still, but a big race win for Ferrari. As for ourselves, well, you can see here, Leclerc's about to cross the line. We are going to have Alonso come in P5. Ocon is going to come in P6. Despite that Russell lockup, he managed to recover for 8th place. So we didn't quite gain as much on the Mercedes as perhaps we would have liked. I mean, 5th and 6th is great. It could have been 4th and 5th. Well, it would have been 4th and 6th, I suppose. Ah, it's a shame.
Okay.
It's a shame. But a good race. The one-stopper definitely was the right call on Ocon. It made it work. You've got to remember, he started back down in 8th place. All in all, a great weekend. But a little sour note to end on. Looking at the final standings, you can see here, not exactly a classic race in Spain. It very rarely is. Carlos Sainz and Perez able to take 1st and 2nd. Of course, Max Verstappen locked up, as did George Russell. When it comes to ourselves, both of our drivers made up places. 5th and 6th is still a really, really good finish. To only get beaten by the Ferraris and Red Bulls is kind of where we want to be. When you look at it as a whole, you know, there was a big gap to Lewis Hamilton in behind. George Russell was actually lapped by the leaders of the race. Of course, he did have that lockup himself. And, well, in terms of the Drivers' Championship, it does see George Russell tumble. Alonso leaps ahead of him on 49 points. Ocon maintains his position of 8th, but pulls ahead of Bottas. And in terms of the constructor standings, you can see here, we are now only 11 points behind Mercedes. It could have been closer. We could have been, what, a few points better off? I mean, Leclerc finished on 12 points. Ocon finished on 8th with Alonso on 10th. We lost 2 points through the lockup. But 4th sounds really impressive. 5th and 6th doesn't sound quite as good, does it? Barcelona is not typically a place for overtaking. The place we're going to next is not particularly a great place for overtaking. We are going to be heading to Monaco. The forecast is for a wet Friday, but a drier weekend. Of course, this is a track where qualifying is king. Getting a good position on the grid is going to be absolutely everything. And, well, let's be honest, it's not exactly been our biggest strength. And it's not a track that plays to our biggest strengths. Low-speed cornering and medium-speed cornering, not exactly ideal for us. Going to be an interesting weekend next time out. Don't think we're going to be doing as well as we did this time around. As always, if you did enjoy today's video, do drop a like on it. I hope to see you guys next time for more. And until next time, whenever that may be, hopefully tomorrow though, it is me, Jack. And I'll see you on the next one. I'm out.